Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I don't think that 99% of the people that are listening to my voice really know what they own when they in terms of owning XRP. I don't believe that 99, maybe even 0.9%. I don't even believe that the majority of influencers on YouTube or on Twitter really, or just people that are in crypto, I don't believe that the majority of them really know what they own. Because to know what you own, you have to know Ripple. And once you really know Ripple, you will know what you own. I had a conversation today with Big Skinny from Twitter. Now, for those of you that don't know, Big Skinny is the official smart aleck of the Digital Asset Investor channel. And he made a comment to me, and that is what inspired this video. He made a comment to me, and he said, you know, there's a lot of people they've watched the market go down a lot today, and he said, you know, they're freaking out about the market going down, and it's because most of them don't know what they own. And he told me, he said, you should do a video today to show them what they own. In other words, show them who Ripple is, because once you know who Ripple is, you will know what you own. This is going to be a longer than normal video, but at the end of this video, you will know what you own. And if you don't get it by the end of this video, then you never will get it. And you should probably sell your XRP and never look at this space again. Because if you hold XRP and you really know who Ripple is and what this really is, you know what you own. And a negative market day, it doesn't even matter if XRP goes down 20% in a day to you, because you know what you own and you know where this is going and you know how this story ends. Watch this video, and after you know what you own, because I'm going to show you, after you know what you own, send this video to your friends and family and let them know what you own so that everybody knows what this is. It took me from 2013 until now to truly know what I own. I'm going to show you, you couldn't drag me away from my XRP investment kicking and screaming, because I know exactly what I own. I've seen enough. And by the end of this video, if you have not seen enough by the end of this video, sell your XRP and don't go anywhere near this ever again. But if you're listening and you're paying attention, by the end of this video, it'll be very clear to you. Okay, I'm going to spend this may be a 30+ minute video, but that's okay, because I think it's very important right now, because I think that what is coming for XRP is more imminent than it ever has been. And I hope that you get to see this video so that you won't be one of those people that just disappears and kicks yourself later. So here we go. Before I get going, I want to make the point though. This is what most people stare at, and this is the distraction that most people get swept up in, and they get upset and depressed, and they strike out at people like me because they're angry at their situation or whatever. But anybody who has an emotion of anger when they see a day like today does not understand what they own when it comes to XRP. I am telling you. There's a couple of other things you need to see before I show you. And the first is this. It's a quote by Albert Einstein. Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. And that's another thing I want you to get out of this video. By the end of this video, if you believe everything I'm about to show you is a coincidence, then again, I've got that igloo still for sale in South Georgia. It melts in 24 hours, but it's an excellent igloo in the meantime. Okay. But if you believe that everything I'm about to show you is just some coincidence, then again, you should sell your XRP right now and just never come to this space again and never pay any attention to it again. Okay. And the last thing I would like you to see before I go down this road is this video from Naveen Gupta. We've shown it a lot on this channel. Words mean things. Naveen Gupta was not joking when he said what he says in this video. I want you to listen very closely, and many of you have never heard it. Listen very closely to what he says. This is Naveen Gupta, who does work for Ripple. Listen.
How do you think, what is the next move, on Ripple's roadmap, in your opinion? To put you on the spot here.
No, it's very simple. So I think one thing, if there is one message that you can get in this room, is Ripple is not an ordinary company. We are not here to have a small market share or do X, do Y, and make small amount of money or something to happen. We are here to make a dent in the universe. Either we will change the remittance universe, the way you understand, the way value gets transferred across the world, between people, between institutions, or we will just fade away. So it's almost 0 or 1, and some of it comes from our Silicon Valley arrogance. Some of it comes from, that's the reason 6 years ago we were born with the mission of moving money like information moves today, right? And we are making it possible working with the existing ecosystem. So I think this is a key differentiator about Ripple, and that's the reason we are a monoline company. Every day we get tens of ideas to say, why don't you do security settlement? Why don't you work in trade finance? Why don't you do X, Y, Z? And what we tell them is, just cross-border remittances is $155 trillion problem. We'll solve this first. We'll make a difference to everybody who's present in this room. And once we have made the difference, then only we will look at something else. So we are like Google is for search, Ripple is for remittances. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it right, and we will not rest till we earn your respect and your business.
Now, before I go forward, I want to make sure everybody out there understands something, and that is life is about connections. Anybody that you know who has any wherewithal, a lot of what they are and what they're about going forward has to do with the connections they've made, whether that's through an Ivy League school or whether that's through being a member of their country club where all of the wealthy people hang out, or whatever it is. Life is about connections. It's not just about what your resume says on paper. If you don't have the right connections, things don't happen. Ripple is the most connected. The reason I've been able to talk about this one company and this one digital asset for all of these years is because this is the most connected company I've ever seen in my life. And what is going on is exactly what your gut is telling you is going on. And I'm about to show you. So here we go. And I've shown parts of this over time, but I'm going to show all of it here. We're going through everything, not everybody, but the key people at Ripple and who they're connected to and how they got there and what they are and who they know and where their connections lead. So we're going to start with, I'll do Brad Garlinghouse, but first it's important that you understand this is the PolySign website. PolySign, I thought I'd start with this guy, Arthur Britta. The first thing that you have with this company is this mysterious guy who does not show his face, literally helped to create the XRP ledger, but nobody's ever seen his face. And I've heard various reasons for that. One is that he has health problems. One thing I've learned about studying Ripple is anytime there's any mystery that if there's a mysterious road that you start to go down, someone tells you that the guy is sick. Okay. That's typically what you hear. Somebody has a health problem or this or that. I've heard that about him. I've heard it about other people having to do with Ripple. Anytime your ears kind of perk up and you're like, what? That's weird. This guy that doesn't ever show his face, does he have a health problem? Does he not? I'll give you another example. That one of the guy who supposedly created Ripple, Ryan Fugger, the Ripple network. I showed on this channel one time, Ryan Fugger. If you go to, he's got a website, I'm pretty sure, and it says that he's got a health problem. And nobody ever talks to him. Nobody's ever interviewed this guy. I would love to see an interview with Ryan Fugger, by the way, to see what that's about. But anyway, so here's Arthur Britta, whose face you never see. He's co-founder of Ripple Labs and co-designer of the XRP ledger. Ripple's grown to over $30 billion in assets in just 5 years. So here you got this guy who just doesn't show his face. All right. Now we've got Brad Garlinghouse, okay, the CEO of Ripple. I'm going to show you a lot of these people's LinkedIn pages. And look, folks, like I said, I don't care how long this takes. By the end of this, if you don't know what you own, it is your problem, okay? Because I can't do anything more for you. Brad Garlinghouse. So he's got a history we know about. He was CEO of Hightail. He was president of applications commerce at AOL. He was at Yahoo, SVP of communications, community, and front doors. Now, so Brad Garlinghouse he's been in Silicon Valley, but this is the thing that interests me the most about Brad Garlinghouse. He was a senior advisor at Silver Lake. Well, who started Silver Lake? Well, I'll tell you who started Silver Lake. Glenn Hutchins, who's at the Digital Currency Group. Remember, the Digital Currency Group and Barry Silbert, they are probably the biggest investor in blockchain. They have their hands in everything. They're part owners in Ripple, Coinbase, all the major players. This Glenn Hutchins is one of the most interesting characters in the whole play to me, because he started Silver Lake, and he also is a board member of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Well, that will come back up in this conversation. Okay, so let's move on down the road. Now we got Marcus Treacher. Okay, remember, and this is important. For the first time in my life, I heard a company, not some existing huge monster company, but this little startup called Ripple from day one has been saying not only they're going to replace Swift, but they are in the process of replacing Swift. Okay, all sorts of bold claims. Well, let's look at Marcus Treacher. He's the SVP of customer success at Ripple. What does his resume look like? Well, what do you know? He was member of the board of directors for Swift, and then he decides to go to Ripple. He was also at HSBC, one of the largest banks in the world, and Citigroup. All right, look where else he was. Accenture, which is one of the early investors in Ripple. Accenture is behind much of what is going on right now. In fact, Accenture is behind the Digital Dollar Project, which is run by Chris Giancarlo, who used to be the head of the CFTC. Chris Giancarlo also now works for Wilkie Barr, I believe it is, the law firm that now represents Ripple. Okay, so let's go on. Then we have Ethan Beard, Senior Vice President of Spring. I met him when I was in Singapore. If you go down his resume, this guy was a director at Facebook. He was also at Google for 4 years. So this guy's leaving two of the largest companies, and he looks like he was like an investor more or less for a few years after that. But he goes from Google and Facebook, two of the most important companies in the world, straight to Ripple, this little startup. And then you got David Schwartz. Now, David Schwartz, if you look through his resume, it's really kind of boring. He shows that he's the CTO. He used to be called the chief cryptographer at Ripple. But these companies that he used to work for are all kind of no-name, but are things you haven't heard of. But what's most interesting about David Schwartz is this, and this is his Twitter handle. This is him responding to someone. He says, the NDA I had to sign for the NSA had a list of things of theirs I promised to keep secret. Usually, it's stuff like partners, business practices, trade secrets. In their list was existence of. Yet my first day at Fort Meade, a crew was filming a documentary inside the NSA. Because he said, I promised to keep secret. I'm going to call this XRP secret, I think. But anyway, so he admittedly was with the NSA. Everybody knows that's been around. Now, let's go to Miguel Valles, who's now, we know he's at Link2 now. He was the head of XRP markets. Now, here's another thing that I want you to be thinking about as we go through all of these different people. And remember, there are no coincidences. As we go through all of these different people, this cast of characters, I'll call it, you've got to ask yourself, what is it that Ripple has that would make these people leave probably in some cases multi-million-dollar salaries at Goldman Sachs or at the CME Group? I don't know what those kind of companies pay. I do know Goldman Sachs, some of these people left $1 million plus salaries maybe multi-million-dollar a year to come to Ripple. What is it that Ripple has that they could possibly be willing to leave that kind of a life to get their hands on? What could it be? All right, so Miguel Valles, he was the head of XRP markets, and he left the CME group, where he was global head of precious metals and metals options. He ran the show at the CME group. When you run a gold desk, that's almost like being a part of running the world, folks, because it's all about the gold. And then this guy did not work at Ripple, but we can't ever forget Matthew Mellon. And the reason we can't forget him is because he mysteriously pops up back somewhere, I think it was back in 2015. He had to know something because he mysteriously pops up with this XRP fortune. Okay. But this article, which we've covered before, there's an interesting section of this article. He's talking about when he met with Donald Trump. He reportedly spent a lot of time with Kit Kennedy, daughter of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in late March. Mellon told a Forbes reporter he dined with President Donald Trump. I shared with him that he should become blockchain friendly if he wants the next millennial vote, Mellon told Forbes in late March. He later died of a drug overdose or something like that. I think that's what the way the story goes. Now, Yoshitaka Kitao, who was on Ripple's board of directors. Remember, SBI Holdings, he's the CEO of SBI Holdings. SBI Holdings bought 10.5% of Ripple back in, I want to say 2015, 16. This guy's the president and CEO, director of SBI Holdings. He also is the CEO and presides over all of these companies, and I think a lot more. This guy is in Japan. He's probably one of the most powerful people in Japan, and he's got his hands in blockchain technology over there, the way the digital currency group has it over here. This guy's one of the most connected people in Japan. He would be on par with maybe Donald Trump over that way. But his resume is so extensive and so crazy. I mean, it would take a whole video to go through that. So I'm not going to go too deep in that, but I do want to remind everybody, these are the principal shareholders in SBI Holdings. Northern Trust, Bank of New York Mellon, JP Morgan Chase, as my father, the official father of the Digital Asset Investor channel, tells me all the time. Nothing happens. You don't have a change in finance across the world without JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs' blessing. Doesn't happen. Not in this country. JP Morgan's one of the largest investors in SBI Holdings. Northern Trust, and I think you also have State Street somewhere in this, but Northern Trust and State Street are both two of the largest traditional custodians in the world. Okay? And they own a chunk of this. All right. Now, moving along. Who do we have next? Oh, Ken Kersen, editor-in-chief at Observer Media. He came onto the Ripple board of directors back in 2017. Before that, he was the editor-in-chief at Observer Media. Who owned Observer Media? Well, that was Jared Kushner, who's senior advisor and son-in-law to President Trump. But Ken Kersen, I believe, is an important part of this story. That's Ken Kersen. That's Jared Kushner, son-in-law and senior advisor to President Trump. And here's Ken Kersen again in a box seat with Ivanka Trump, daughter of Donald Trump and wife of Jared Kushner. And then this past week, we had, remember, the United Arab Emirates and Israel had announced a peace deal. Remember, the United States, in conjunction with them, they announced a peace deal. Then a day or two ago, there's a delegation, and Jared Kushner was in the delegation, a group of people from Israel who flew to the United Arab Emirates, right? Which reminds me of Naveen Gupta, because Naveen Gupta is managing director, South Asia and MENA at Ripple, United Arab Emirates. And let's look at his resume. HSBC, Citi. And this is the same guy that said Ripple is not an ordinary company. They are here to put a dent in the universe or go away. And guess what? They're not going away. Moving along. Next, we have Jess Chang. All right. Jess Chang was a deputy general counsel at Ripple from 2015 to 2018. What did she do before that? She was counsel and officer at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. That's the same place where Glenn Hutchins is a director, right? She left Federal Reserve Bank of New York, goes to Ripple, and then leaves Ripple and goes to the International Monetary Fund. From there, she goes back to the Federal Reserve Board. You couldn't make this stuff up if you wanted to. Who's next? Ron William Hammond, author of the Token Taxonomy Act, former legislative assistant for Representative Warren Davidson of Ohio. He's now manager of government relations at Ripple. When he worked for Representative Warren Davidson, look what he did. Let's see, Token Taxonomy Act, regulatory framework for digital assets. The legislation earned endorsements from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Blockchain Protocol Labs, Coinbase, Fidelity, Circle. Recognize any of these names? So he's been in D.C., legislative aid to all these different people, worked with regulators within the CFTC, right? That's where Chris Giancarlo was the head, right? So this guy that now works at Ripple was working with regulators at the CFTC, Federal Reserve, SEC. These same names keep popping up, right? Are you starting to figure out what you own, by the way, folks? You know, if you're sitting there holding Dogcoin or freaking Litecoin, you might want to wake up because it's all right here in front of your face. It's XRP. It's always been XRP. And now I introduce you to Stuart Al-Dorati. Stuart Al-Dorati is general counsel at Ripple. Where was he before he was general counsel at Ripple? He was at the CIT group. What is the CIT group? Well, that's a bank group. Okay. CIT group was run by Steve Mnuchin. Steve Mnuchin, for those of you that don't know, is the Treasury Secretary of the United States right now. Steve Mnuchin, back during the financial crisis, bought one of the troubled banks called IndyMac Bank. He then renamed it One West Bank. All right. When he renamed it One West Bank, as he was trying to bring it back to life, I guess, and then turn around and sell it. He had two guys that were his left and right hand men at One West Bank. One West Bank, one of them was Joseph Otting, who later became the comptroller of the currency. The other one was Brian Brooks, who then went from there to Coinbase and then became he is now the interim comptroller of the currency after Joseph Otting stepped down. But there's more to that story. Steve Mnuchin sold One West Bank, and when he did, he sold it to CIT Group, and then he went on to the board at the CIT Group. Who did they appoint while he was on the board of the CIT Group to be their general counsel? Stuart Al-Dorati. Steve Mnuchin then leaves to go become the Treasury Secretary of the United States, and Stuart Al-Dorati goes to Ripple. The rest of his resume is HSBC, American Express. Moving along, Norman Reed, the first general counsel at Ripple. Wait till you see this guy's little profile. Let's go down to Ripple, and before that, before Ripple, he was with DTCC. All right, you might recognize that name. Do you recognize this one? Before that, he was with the SEC, and before that, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And yes, that is where Glenn Hutchins is today. The same Glenn Hutchins who started Silver Lake, which is where Brad Garlinghouse was an advisor. Next up, Greg Kidd, who you probably saw my interview. And if you haven't seen my interview, go to YouTube and type in Greg Kidd, digital asset investor. You'll find that one an interesting one. Greg Kidd, he was the chief risk officer. He was one of the first 10 people at Ripple, chief risk officer. Where was he before that? Well, he was at Promontory Financial Group. That was one of the places he was. Before that, he was a senior analyst at the Federal Reserve Board. There's the Federal Reserve Board again. But let's go back to Promontory Financial Group. Remember that name because we will get back to it. Then there was Karen Gifford, who changed her name on LinkedIn to K Gifford. I guess maybe she doesn't want her LinkedIn profile to be seen. For those of you that don't know who Karen Gifford is, she was one of the first people at Ripple. She was a special advisor for global regulatory affairs. Here's a picture of her with Chris Larsen and the Prime Minister. I think that's the Prime Minister of Luxembourg back in the day. Well, what did she do prior to Ripple? She was a counsel and officer, Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the same Federal Reserve Bank that Glenn Hutchins is at. Do we need to pause and for my son to draw you all a picture? Is anybody having any problem getting this? The price of XRP on CoinMarketCap is a distraction. It is a distraction. You will see what this is really about at the end of this video, because I will remind you. After Federal Reserve Bank of New York, she eventually ends up at Ripple, and then she goes and becomes a council member, Global Future Council on the Future of Blockchain at the World Economic Forum. Right? But let's look back. Let's go back down. She was at the Promontory Financial Group before she came to Ripple, just like Greg Kidd. Now, let's go to the next one. Zoe Cruz is on Ripple's board. Let me go back and show you right here. She's an advisor, that is. Zoe Cruz, an advisor at Ripple. So let's go back to here. Here's Zoe Cruz. Let's see what what her history is. She's Harvard. By the way, there's Harvard graduates all over the place in this whole Ripple story. But let's go. She was at Morgan Stanley, and then, there you go. She was at Promontory Financial Group, LLC. And then later, she's member of the advisory council at the Harvard Kennedy School, right? But Promontory, that's 3 people. That's 3 strikes and you're out right there, folks. When I see something 3 times like that, we have to look at it. Promontory Financial Group. First thing you need to know is that it's an IBM company. This is Promontory, operating at the intersection of strategy, risk management, technology, and regulation. I decided to look at their wiki because I smell something here. The company was founded in 2001 by Eugene Ludwig, who served as comptroller of the currency under President Bill Clinton, and Alfred H. Moses, a partner in the law firm Covington and Burlington LLP. Promontory is based in Washington, D.C., and has offices But Promontory is a wholly owned subsidiary of IBM. It's a global consulting firm that advises clients on a variety of financial services matters, including regulatory issues, compliance, risk management. Hey, liquidity. These guys advise on liquidity. Now let's look right here. Look at this. Approximately 170 of the consultants working for Promontory were former employees of authorities in financial supervision. The news media has sometimes referred to Promontory as a shadow regulator for Wall Street. Quote, shadow regulator. Whoa. Moving along. Let's talk about Chris Larsen for a second. I don't really need to look back. Chris Larsen's kind of in your face. We've talked about him so much, but I do want to reiterate that Chris Larsen was executive chairman of Ripple. He's on the high level advisory group on fintech at the IMF. Brianna Madigan, who VP head global institutional markets at Ripple. Where does she leave to come to Ripple? She thought it was worth her time to leave Goldman Sachs. She was then at sales and trading at blockchain, but she ends up at Ripple. For some reason, she thought that it was a good idea to come run the liquidity at Ripple, Goldman Sachs, right? And then this past week, last 2 weeks, we've heard about this guy, Aditya Turakia. I don't know how to say his name. He was Global FX and Emerging Markets Franchise Management, full-time at Goldman Sachs. This guy, you better write it down. He was making $1 million plus at Goldman Sachs and thought that it was a good idea to leave and go to Ripple. Wonder what enticed him. And next up, we have Susan Athey. Susan Athey is on Ripple's board of directors. She is one of the most prominent academians in the world. I guess, is that the word? Academian? Prominent people in academia, maybe. Let's look at her. She's a Stanford Graduate School of Business professor. She's board member. This is common for some of these people. They're on boards at various companies. She's got a degree at Duke University, Stanford, Okay. And if you go to her wiki, this thing's chock full of all kinds of accolades. She is a member of President Obama's Committee for the National Media of Science. This woman is like big time. Okay. But probably the most interesting thing is that she was at the 2013 Bilderberg Conference. For those of you that don't know, let's just look at a few of the people. Here's her name right here. She was at the Bilderberg meeting. Just look at some of the people that were there. We'll go down this list. Just the first one, that Jeff Bezos was there from Amazon, just so you see. These are some of the most powerful people in the world. They get together. I think it's every year or two or something. And who knows what they do. It's very secretive. You don't get invited to that unless you're somebody really important. And then we go to Anna Manuel. Anha Manuel. She is a co-founder and partner at Rice, Hadley, Gates, and Manuel. Stanford University, Special Assistant to the Undersecretary for Political Affairs, Nicholas Burns, U.S. Department of State. Another big timer. And she's Harvard Law. Everybody seems to be Harvard something, Harvard this or that. Here's Anna Manuel. This is where this is her company, Rice, Hadley, Gates, Manuel. Yes, that would be the same Condoleezza Rice, who was, she was the 66th Secretary of State of the United States under George W. Bush. This guy's no schlub either. This is Stephen Hadley. He was, where's his? Mr. Hadley served for 4 years as the assistant to the president for the National Security Affairs from 2005 to 2009. In that capacity, he was the principal White House foreign policy advisor to then President George W. Bush, National Security Council staff. And then you got this guy who's no schlub, Robert Gates, the 22nd Secretary of Defense. He's the only Secretary of Defense in the U.S. history to be asked to remain in that office by a newly elected president, which was Obama, I guess. Okay. And there's Anna Manuel. Happens to be on Ripple's board. She talks on Fox News when they're talking about Trump talking trade with G7 leaders. And then you got Craig Phillips, who's on the board at Ripple. Craig Phillips was counselor to the Secretary, U.S. Department of the Treasury. He was a managing director at BlackRock before that. He was at Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse. Here's a little picture of him with Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary of the United States. Phase 2, Steve, phase 2. That's that Trump. What Trump said that one time made me laugh. But Craig Phillips, the one other thing that you need to understand about BlackRock, as long as we're talking about it, I forgot to pull up Robbie Mitchnick, who was at Ripple and helped Susan Athey to create the model for what they thought that XRP was worth. They did a paper on it. Robbie Mitchnick then worked at Ripple and eventually left, where he now heads digital assets at BlackRock. All right. I'll let you see that picture one more time. Let that sink in. And finally, I think this is the last one or one of them. Ben Lawsky, the Lawsky Group, Department of Financial Services, State of New York. That was actually the same Department of Financial Services where I think he created the BIT license. He was chief of staff for the Governor Andrew Cuomo, State of New York, special assistant to the Attorney General. Now he is on Ripple's board, folks. Columbia Law School graduate. Let's see if we have anything else. Yes, this is how I want to finish this video. I want you to think about all of the connections and all the people that we just went over. And I want you to just ask yourself a simple question. Are we talking about this digital? What is it that would draw all of these people from these kind of educated backgrounds, from these kind of connections, from these kind of salaries? What is it that brings them to Ripple? What is it that would bring all of these people to Ripple? What is this thing that this startup in Silicon Valley has that where it would be the only startup that I've ever seen in my life, or the only company for that matter, that is so chock full of people that are well connected, well educated, and from all over the place that are drawn to this one company. What is it? The one thing, the values in the protocol, and don't take my word for it.
Crypto.
Glenn Hutchins.
You don't think about the internet protocol, accounting mechanism, what's called the blockchain. But the most important piece, which is one that people aren't focusing on, is the protocol. The underlying protocol by which we agree to conduct these transactions. So you use a series of protocols every day, and you don't even think about them. You don't think about the internet protocol. You don't think about the simple mail technology protocol. You don't think about the file transfer protocol. You don't think about the high-text translation protocol. I can go through them, right? You just make use of the technology, and the protocols make it work. The people who really understand what's going on with digital currencies understand that putting these protocols in place, the blockchain protocol, the Ethereum protocol, the Ripple protocol, and then enabling those protocols to cause transactions to occur. And then those transactions can be defined very broadly as not just moving things of value, but anything that's got an information content, is extraordinarily transformative. The focus on the value of the token is distracting and uninformative.
These people did not show up at this company Ripple for no reason. They showed up because of XRP, and the value is in the protocol, and the prices are a distraction. When it is ready, you and we will all know it. Trust you, me on that. Now, I've been telling you about unstoppable domains, folks, and I want to make sure that you understand. This is mine, digitalassetinvestor.crypto. I want to draw your attention, and remember, this is in the description of all of my videos. You can go, and what you can do is you can buy. It's like having an email address. Remember back in the .com boom, we had the .com. If people would buy .com addresses, but hoping that they could sell them, and they did sell them for a lot of money. And I'm going to show you some of those sales in a second. But I wanted to make you aware, when you buy these domains, when you buy, like I got digitalassetinvestor.crypto, they also have a function in here where you can sell your domain, and you can click this and you can actually go and put them up for sale. This is one of the coolest things I've seen come along, and it's so cool because I remember that .com bubble. I want you to jog your mind here a little bit. Look, I found this as a list of the most expensive domain names. These are from the .com that happened. Voice.com sold for $30 million. 360.com for $17 million. Sex.com, $13 million. Fun.com, $12 million. Hotels.com, $11 million. This gives you a real idea of how crazy this can all get, folks. So if you haven't gone and played with it, go play with it. Click on the link in the description of any of my videos and go check it out. I think this is going to be a game changer. I hope that now you all know what you own. I think that you should. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. Hold on a second. Forgot to tell you something. Yesterday, I sent out, for those of you that have joined my email newsletter, I sent out my first email yesterday. If you did not receive it, you need to check your spam folder, because in that spam folder, you may have the email newsletter. Okay. And I laid out all the digital assets that I currently own, as well as a few other things. So go check your spam folder on that. I am the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that if they haven't gone and checked out Unstoppable Domains, in the description of my video, you can find the link, and it is awesome. I'm buying these things myself. I bought some more this morning. Thank you for listening.
Every day, billions of people around the world are mocked, ridiculed, laughed at, and embarrassed by their friends, family, and even strangers. These people go through their days knowing there are secrets being kept from them. They hear the faint whispers behind closed doors. The information and knowledge is held very close and only shared with others who were fortunate enough to find out. Feeling lost, rejected, and ostracized, these people give up, never finding out what digital assets the digital asset investor holds. But there is hope. Join the free Digital Asset Investor email newsletter and find out what digital assets he owns each month, including investments he's considering. Click the link in the description of this video or go to digitalassetinvestornewsletter.com. Put an end to your days of gloom and depression. Join the greatest free digital asset email newsletter ever created.